open the pod bay doors.
Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of the Cinematic Traveler Podcast. I am your intrepid movie exploring host, Chris, and on this episode, guess what? There's a horror movie out. Not only a horror movie based on a Stephen King short story. Not only a horror movie based on a short story by Stephen King, but a horror movie written and directed by Osgood Perkins. So you know I'm excited to review this film, and I know that you're excited to hear my review for this film, and I can't wait to talk about it. But before I do, if you could do me one more exciting favor, and that is whatever you're listening to the show on, somewhere on that screen there is a follow button. Just tap that follow button for me. Not only does it help me and the show, but it helps you because you won't miss any future reviews. And you can also go back and listen to all my previous episodes with all my amazing reviews and this sexy, sexy voice. Also, if you could share the show with everybody on your social media, all your friends, your families, I don't care, even coworkers you hate. If you just want to tell about the show, I would appreciate it. You can also find me on social media. I'm on Instagram at Cinematic Traveler Pod. I'm on X or Twitter. That one is at CMT Pod. And I'm also on Blue Sky. That one is at Cinematic Traveler something. And I also have an email address if that's easier for you. That one is the Cinematic Traveler Pod at gmail.com. So there you have plenty of ways to follow the show, keep up with the show, and get in touch with me, your favorite podcast host. And if you are another podcaster and you're listening to this, I hate to break it to you, but yeah, I'm everybody's favorite podcast host. You're just going to have to deal with it. I'm sorry. Life sucks, and then you die, which brings us to the monkey. Oh, wait, I did forget our witty banter. I hope that all of my beloved listeners out there are doing well. I am sorry that I missed my middle of the week episode. Sometimes life does get in the way. Plus, there really wasn't much out there to watch. I'm going to have to fine-tune my midweek episodes, but I do apologize for that, and I am grateful that you're here. So let's talk about the monkey, damn it. Don't jump monkey with the monkey. As I mentioned, this is written and directed by Osgood Perkins, who just had a pretty good hit last year in Longlegs, and is known for his moody, atmospheric, slow burn films, but The Monkey is his first foray into horror comedy. And yes, this is based on a short story by Stephen King that I don't think I read, so I don't know how close it follows, but really, Hollywood hardly ever follows close to whatever the book is, so we'll give it a pass for that one. Now, before I get into the review, I do have to over-explain a couple things. I am going to give you a spoiler-free review and plot synopsis. Now, in the plot synopsis, I have hidden two movie quotes. Actually, this one, I'm a little bit of a cheeky monkey, as it were, because one of the quotes isn't from a movie. It is from a very famous television show that has been around for a very, very long time and involves one of the best TV dads ever in the history of television. So, yes, forgive me for changing the rules a little bit, but it's my podcast and I'll do that. But as always, if you can identify both quotes or one or the other, I will give you a point for each one that you get right. At the end of the month, I add up all the points. Whoever has the most points wins and gets to pick a movie for me to review next week. However, if you only listen from time to time, first of all, shame on you, but also you can play along just for fun. Let me know you're out there listening, as it would be nice to know, because I sit here behind my fort of blankets, a sad, lonely man sitting behind his fort of blankets talking about all of these weird movies. So let me know you're out there. Also, you can always go back and catch up. I don't add up all of the points until the end of the month, so you can get caught up by going back and listening, but that's up to you. I don't want to pressure you. It's all for fun. I know it sounds a little uncool, but you know what? That's everybody's favorite time of the week, and that is to be uncool with Chris. And I know I have over-explained everything. Damn, I do it every week. I'm so sorry. Are you still listening? Are you still there, my beloved listener? I hope so, because this is going to be a fun one. So with The Monkey, we open the movie with a man rushing into a pawn shop, looking to get rid of a large monkey action figure collectible. Don't you call it a toy. that plays on a big drum. Well, the shop owner is none too impressed by this large monkey doll. Well, that is until it causes his untimely demise. Then he's impressed. Who's impressed now, Mr. Man? That's not a movie quote. I know that is a movie quote, but that's not one of the quotes, so you don't get any credit for that one. Well, then we get a narration by Hal, played by Theo James, as he tells us of when, as a child, him and his twin brother Bill found this monkey, and shortly thereafter, horrible deaths occurred. Now, flash forward 25 years, and Hal is now an adult, trying to spend some quality time with his estranged son, Petey, played by Colin O'Brien, when suddenly Bill calls Hal, telling him that the monkey is up to its old ways. Now, Hal is the sensible one, so he's not so quick to judge that the monkey is back, and he says to Bill, this could be maybe just an accident or a series of accidents. But Bill quickly retorts something like, in death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escape. Hint, hint. With Hal being dragged back into this monkey's mayhem, and now the monkey has seemingly set its sight on Petey, he is determined to find it and end its reign of terror for good. And not only does Hal have to worry about this monkey, he also doesn't know if he can trust Bill in helping him find and stop this monkey. So, will Hal find the monkey and realize, yep, here's your problem. Someone set the thing to evil. Hint, hint. That's a good quote. And then flip the switch back to make this a good monkey? Or will this simian drummer of death cause the next great apocalypse? Well, I will not spoil this movie by answering those questions, but I will give you the best review of The Monkey in all the podcast universe, nay, in all of the universe. So if you are new to the show, or if you haven't listened in a while, I do break my reviews down into 3 segments: the good, the bad, and the nitpicky. The good are the things that I like in the movie. The bad, obviously, things that I don't. And the nitpicky, these are things that are neither good nor bad. Just sometimes Hollywoodisms or sometimes silly things in these movies that my weird little brain picks up on that make me laugh. And as I am trying to do with this podcast, I'd like to make you laugh. Because if there are 2 things I love to do in this world, one of them is to make people laugh, and hopefully with the other, I don't make someone laugh. You can make your own conclusions from that. We're all adults here. We're all adults here. So let's move into the good of The Monkey. I am going to start out with the performances. I think Theo James does a very good job basically carrying this movie. He's actually playing both parts of Hal and Bill, these twins, and they are both separate, different characters, and it's kind of cool to see him playing off of each other, as well as, building up the one as this super nice guy, kind of nerdy, and the other one is just a complete asshole from the start of the movie all the way to the end, basically. Plus, he adds the narration for the story, and I'm not a big fan of narration, but I think it works pretty well in this movie, and I think it helps kind of keep you invested as you go along into this story. It really does feel like a story that you're getting told. But yeah, I think he does a good job carrying this movie. I also like the young man that plays, interestingly enough, the younger version of Hal and Bill, Christian Convery. I actually think he does a bit of a better job than Theo James of portraying 2 separate characters, because there are points in the movie where I was watching, I was like, well, is this the same actor, or is this 2 different kids, or they found some twins or something? But yeah, it turns out it was just the same kid, and I was like, man, he did a really great job, because again, it feels like 2 separate people in the movie, and that's what you need in this film, because these are the 2 forces that are colliding over this monkey. They also have a bit in the flashbacks with their mother, Lois, played by Tatiana Maslany. I think that's how you say her name, of She-Hulk fame. I think she does a pretty good job, as well as this sort of free spirit mother who has gotten left by their dad. So she's kind of having to learn life and teach them these lessons, as it were, and about life and death and how they should live their lives. And it's a touching relationship between her and these two kids. Also, Elijah Wood shows up for a cameo, a little bit part here. It's always cool to see Elijah Wood, so I'm going to put that in the positive. Let's move into the next positive. I will say that Osgood Perkins again continues his trend of making a good-looking film. And I've seen most of his movies. I think I've seen them all. At any rate, everything looks good. I mean, it follows like Longlegs and The Black Coat's Daughter. It's got a particular style, a particular look to it. It doesn't feel like it's just been slapped together, which, as I mentioned, is kind of odd because Longlegs came out, the middle of last year? So it's only been maybe 6 or 7 months. So he must have either been doing this at the same time or just filmed this really quickly, but you can't tell because it doesn't look like it was just slapped together. In fact, it's just a totally different genre of horror movies. So it was kind of neat as you watch this movie to think of him from his, like I said, his moody, atmospheric horror movies to make this type of movie and still make it look good. There's some really cool sequences that involve this monkey and how scary it looks, and his dream sequence that Hal has is really trippy. I enjoy that kind of stuff. But yeah, he is able to use fading shadows, and the shots are all set up perfectly to where you either get the appropriate humor or, I guess, chills. We'll get into that later. But again, it's a very good-looking film, and you could definitely tell that this is an Osgood Perkins movie because it's well-crafted, which leads into the next thing. Again, it was something I thought was cool. I was watching this movie, and I give him nothing but credit for this, to make this type of movie, because it is a horror comedy. I would say it's much more comedy than horror. It's almost like a slapstick comedy that has a bunch of gore in it, which, by the way, I get to do a gore score on this one. Yay, it's a horror movie. Yeah, that's fun. I always like doing that. Anyway, there is a lot of gore, a lot of over-the-top Looney Tunes scenes. Kind of mirrors Final Destination a bit, where the monkey doesn't outright kill people, but it sets things in motion. And Osgood Perkins does a good job of kind of following, like I said, Final Destination, where he sets up things where you think, okay, this is what's going to be the thing that kills this character, but they kind of twist and turn, and you go, oh, God, and it goes into something really over the top and gory and funny. I had a lot of laugh out loud moments, especially the first hour of this movie. I think it really clicks well with the humor and the gore that satisfies that, I don't know, what would you say, Sam Raimi itch that I get from time to time. Yeah, it definitely fits into that realm of horror comedy, and it's so over the top that you know not to take this seriously. Actually, from the opening scene, it kind of establishes what this movie's going to be, and that this gore that you're going to see, as disgusting as it is, it's meant to be funny. And again, it ties in with the direction of the film because there's a lot of great edits to sort of punctuate the humor in these scenes. And I think Osgood really, again, I give him credit for taking a chance to step outside of his comfort zone. And you can see that he's having fun with this movie. It's basically one of those type of movies that's winking at you the whole time throughout. So you know, okay, we're just going to have some fun with this. And I got to give him respect. I got to give him respect for that. And again, if you're into that type of movie, which I am, I love Evil Dead 2, one of my favorite movies of all time. Love Sam Raimi. I think he's the master of the gore and horror comedy blend. I think no one does it better than him. But, as someone who appreciates that, it was nice to see this on screen and have some fun. Just kind of kick back, eat your popcorn, and get grossed out and laugh at things you probably shouldn't laugh at. In fact, there were times I laughed at things in this movie when no one else in the movie theater was laughing. So I'm proud of myself for being the weirdest person in the movie theater. Maybe that's why nobody sits around me. And that sort of wraps up the positive of this movie. I'm trying, like I said, to avoid spoilers. I don't want to give away how these scenes end up, but there's some really good ones. You've seen the one with the lady in the pool, where the electricity hits her. That has a great punctuation at the end. There's also something with their aunt, how she meets her. There's also a great hard cut from when they find out about their uncle. Anyway, I don't want to spoil things, but yeah, there's some really good combinations of over-the-top slapstick Looney Tunes horror gory kind of stuff. So anyway, let's go into the negatives. As much as I enjoyed that stuff, I do think you have to have the right balance for horror comedy. And again, I'm a Sam Raimi fan, and he knows how to hit that balance. But there's other movies out there, Zombieland. Heck, even that movie I saw a couple of weeks ago, Hard Eyes, kind of hit it just right, where I feel like you can have the comedy, and I'll enjoy that. I will laugh. Like I said, in this movie, I laughed at some stuff that I shouldn't have. But you also need to have that horror element to be scary enough, or at least taken seriously enough, that it feels like a threat. And while this movie, yeah, you feel the threat of the monkey and the tension of what's going to happen in a Final Destination sort of way. You know how those movies are, where you're like, okay, how is this person going to die? I don't think it really lands the horror side of it as well as it could have. I don't remember a scene that was particularly scary. And once you get about halfway in, maybe an hour in, it kind of loses its shock value because you've seen all of these over the top kills, that it almost becomes redundant. Like I said, it's like a Looney Tunes cartoon. So you kind of get to this point where you're like, okay, why am I invested in this movie? When you have characters that don't react the way you should in this type of, and again, that leads back to the horror side. You can have a horror comedy, but your characters can't think it's a comedy. They have to think it's a horror movie, and then the comedy plays off of that. Whereas this one, you don't get a lot of reactions to things that you would get from a human being. Again, I hate to bring up Sam Raimi, but I love him so much. But in Evil Dead 2, I know it's over the top and slapstick and Three Stooges and all that stuff, but you really identify with Ash, and you could see his descent not only into madness, but his recovery from that and becoming this goofball action hero. But you could see him reacting to things as you would react if you were in this situation. It always strikes me funny when he just tries to leave very early on. It just always makes me laugh. But at any rate, the characters here, especially Hal, and I understand they've seen these deaths when they were kids, but things happen and he just stands there and watches it. And I just go, okay, well, you need to react to this. Or they have other characters that are very odd in the way that they're like police officers or other people that get involved with this chase for this monkey, where they see things and they're just like standing there watching, or they react in some way where you're like, okay, why is this person like this? What is this world we're in that people can look at this stuff and react in the way that they are? Again, I don't want to spoil things, but you've seen it like in the preview where they have that one priest who is at a funeral and he comes out and goes, oh, fuck. He's funny and it fits in with the comedy side, but I don't understand why he is the way he is or why he's reacting that way. There's really not that connection with these characters. There's a lot of, that's my next negative. There's a lot of odd characters in this movie. Again, I get what they're going for with the humor, but they're just so weird or just straight up assholes. I think everybody in this movie is pretty much an asshole. Even Hal, I mean, when you kind of understand why things are the way they are, you just look at him like, okay, well, you're an asshole for starting all this and the way you are with your kid, all that. But they react to things. There's this other character who's chasing after the monkey as well, and he is just so weird that it comes off cartoonish and one note. Really, a lot of these characters are one note. There's nothing that you really invest in with these characters. That's the problem with the movie. You get halfway into it, and once you kind of fall into the groove of the slapstick, gory kills and stuff, your brain kind of wants more as you're watching the movie. You're like, okay, so why am I watching the movie? Why should I be invested in these characters? Because I really wasn't. I didn't care what happened to Hal or his brother or his son Petey. It just was not interesting to me. I didn't connect to them. There was nothing there for me to be on edge about. And, any movie, you should care about the characters. That's why you're watching the movie. You're investing in those characters. And I just didn't feel that here, which moves into the next negative. You don't really have much here by way of story, which is fine. I know it's a horror movie and I can deal with that. But at the same time, there are elements that are introduced that could have made this more. It could have made me care more about the characters. It could have brought more story, more tension, so that the horror part of it, I'm buying into. I'm really scared for these people. And then when the dumb slapstick stuff happens, I can laugh at that as sort of a release of the tension from the horror, where this movie just doesn't do that. Like I said, the characters are very one note. You could have cut out Hal's son Petey from the movie completely and it wouldn't have changed anything. There's no real good resolution to that. There's nothing there to make it interesting. They don't really bond. I guess they sort of do, but it feels like, okay, well, why would they bond over this? It's not like they've developed this relationship that you would think from being estranged. Maybe they would have a connection trying to find this monkey or something. The same thing with Bill. I don't want to go into too much, as I mentioned. I don't want to give out spoilers or anything, but I think there were different ways they could have handled that character that would have made this movie, again, more interesting, more suspenseful, or at least made me care that they could have died at any point in this movie. I just never really felt that. And it's, again, I think that's the biggest fault of this movie, is it doesn't pull the horror element off enough to make me on edge for the characters. But that's really all that I could find negative in the movie. As I mentioned, it's well put together. I think the gore, a lot of it was practical. You could see some CGI stuff here and there, but for the most part, it was a lot of fun in that regard. So let's go ahead and move into the nitpicky. And again, these are things that are neither good nor bad, just things they put in these movies, sometimes Hollywoodisms or weird things that stick out to me in these movies. I will say, and I don't know if this is a nitpick or not, but I think their mother, Lois, gives them the best piece of advice I wish somebody would have given me when I was a child. But I think one of the kids asks her for advice about growing up or getting older and how to deal with that. And she kind of thinks about it for a second, and her first response was, take care of your teeth. And I could not help but laugh, because I have gone through some dental work recently, and the pain of that dental work is enough to make me want to go back and punch younger Chris right in the face. Yes, if you're listening out there, take care of your teeth so you don't have to go through the torture of going to the dentist. My God, is there anything more painful than having to go to the dentist? Even if you get your teeth cleaned, it feels like your mouth is in a lot of pain for the next 2 or 3 days. So yes, the monkey has provided us with some of the best advice put on screen in many years, and that would be take care of your teeth. And my next nitpick for the movie, there's a point where Hal and Petey are in a hotel room, and Hal wakes up and his air conditioning unit is set way too high. I think it's set at like 80-some degrees. He starts turning it down. And I couldn't help but think, is there anybody on the planet Earth that during the summertime doesn't go into a hotel room and turn that motherfucker down to about 62 degrees? I will freeze myself to death at a hotel, really most times of the year, but especially in the summertime. I am going to run that AC nonstop the whole time I am in that hotel room, and I'm going to take a hot shower for about 45 minutes every time I take a hot shower in a hotel room. I will stand there and record a podcast. Ooh, in the shower. How naughty. But at any rate, I couldn't help but laugh, because that's the first thing I go to when I go in a hotel room, right to the thermostat, and I start turning that bitch way down. And my final nitpick, I don't think any of these were really nitpicks, to be honest with you. I'm just trying to make you laugh a little. There is a point early on where, when the boys are little, their babysitter takes them to a Japanese steakhouse, the one with the hibachi right in front of there, and the guy does all the fun stuff with the knives and everything. And there's a very comical death scene involved in that. But I have to say, as an adult, is there any more wonderful, joyous place than a Japanese steakhouse? It's just such fun to go. I don't have a lot of things that bring joy into my life, but when I go to a Japanese steakhouse and that guy makes the little volcano with the onions and all the smoke of flame comes out, or he makes a funny shape with the fried rice, or he kind of flips the shrimp around and you try to catch, that's just so much fun. I think that beats fine dining. I would rather go to a Japanese steakhouse and try to catch some shrimp flipping through the air than go to a nice 5-star steakhouse somewhere where I have to dress up and choose the correct wine and all that stuff. Just God bless Japanese steakhouse. I hope they never go out of style. I think we should all just meet at one sometime and support the show, and y'all can buy me a lovely, lovely dinner. Just know that I am going to get all the extra helpings of the fried rice that I can. I don't know if I should tell you this, but how about a little insight into me? When I was younger, I think I was probably 24, 25. Anyway, I was dating this woman, and we went with her friends and family to a Japanese steakhouse. And, you're all sitting around the hibachi, and we got the whole table and everything. And, they give you a lot of food at those restaurants. You get what you pay for. I was kind of near the chef, so every time he would do that thing where anybody want extra rice or extra this. I was just holding my plate. I'm like, come on. Like, was it Jake Elwood? That scene where he's got the wine glass in his hand and he's just looking at the waiter like, come on, just give me the wine. But that's how I was. Give me the fried rice. So I had this big mountain of food on my plate, and I killed that plate. I mean, there was nothing left. And after I get done, I look around at all her friends and family, and they've all got like to-go boxes. They could only, oh, that was so much food. I was like, oh shit. Oh, well, that was when I was young and I could do that. Now that would probably put me in the hospital. But I do love a Japanese steakhouse. But I know what you're asking. Did I love the monkey? Now, before I get to that, let me do my gore score. This is the only thing I give a number rating to. Let's see. I go from 0, which is obviously no gore, to 5, which is something like a Terrifier 3 level of gore. I would say this one is pretty close. I'm going to give this about a 4.5. If you are squeamish, you're not going to enjoy the comedy that comes from the gore, because there are some moments that it gets pretty nasty. I like I said, I did laugh a lot at those moments, but it gets pretty over the top with the gore. So be warned, it is an extremely gory movie, and it lets you know from the very beginning. So if you're one of those people that can't handle that, I would definitely recommend skipping this movie, or wait till it comes on streaming, and then you could just kind of fast forward things. But overall, how did I feel about The Monkey? Again, this is a very difficult movie to review because I respect and appreciate Osgood Perkins taking this step outside of his comfort zone, especially after Long Legs, which was a bit pretentious. This feels like he's just out there having fun, making sort of a throwback, as I mentioned, to Sam Raimi movies or Zombieland or something like that, where it's just comedy with gore and slapstick stuff. So I did like those elements, and I think really the first 45 minutes to an hour, I was invested in this film. I was enjoying all that stuff. But once that starts to get repetitive and you realize these characters have nothing to them, the movie kind of dies, no pun intended, about after that hour mark. So when it gets to the end, yeah, there are still some moments that I laughed about, but I just really didn't care about the characters. So I wasn't really that invested in the movie. And I really think he needed to just turn the dial up a little bit on the horror so that I could take that more seriously. So when the slapstick stuff does happen, again, it's sort of a relief of tension more than just being a straight out comedy. So yeah, it's very tough for me because I had fun with this movie. And I think if you're the type of person that likes the over the top gore and you can kind of overlook the blandness of the characters and the story for that matter, then I probably would recommend for you to go see this movie. But overall, I think this is a solid streaming service movie. Like if this was on Shudder or Netflix or something, yeah, I would probably give it a strong recommendation. It's really good. It's sort of right on the line. So I could kind of tiptoe either way with it. But for the masses out there, I would say just wait for it to come out on streaming, which will probably be in about a week and a half. But Osgood Perkins, I know you're listening to the show. Keep it up, man. I like you mixing things up in your career. I'd actually like to see you do maybe a non-horror comedy and see if you could do that, because I think you did some really great work with the editing in this movie to get those laughs out of me. So that wraps up my review for The Monkey. And if you're still listening, then I must have done something right. And if I did, again, please follow the show, share it with your friends and family or on social media, play along with the movie quote contest, and let me know you're out there listening. Leave me a review as well. I would appreciate that. It does let me know that people are listening. And again, I'm sitting here in the vastness of Charleston, South Carolina, not knowing if anybody cares what I have to say. Also, if you do want to hear a spoiler-filled review that I will do, I am on another podcast, Just Go Watch, where I have two co-hosts, and we review these movies, but we do them with full spoilers, and we're doing The Monkey this week. And you could find that show and listen and hear all of the fun, gory details, pun intended. Now, as for my show, I will be back with my streaming surprise episode towards the middle or end of the week. I promise I will have one out. I am making that commitment right now. I will have one out for you by the end of this week. So you definitely want to subscribe to the show so you'll know when that comes out. And I actually think there's a couple coming up that might be fun to review. So again, I'm going to tweak that, I think, next month to try to help me be a little more consistent with that episode. That's the hardest one to do because sometimes it's just tough finding something to watch. And then if work kind of gets in the way, and it really makes it difficult. I'm not getting paid to do this. If you would subscribe to the show and share it with all your friends, then I could get paid to do that. You would have so many reviews. You would have constant eargasms from hearing my voice. Oh boy, I'm really off the rails with this episode. But yeah, I will definitely be back because I love you. And that's what I'm here to do. I tell everyone I know I've got the smartest and sexiest audience in all the podcast universe. And you never fail to live up to those high standards. So thank you. Thank you for bringing your sexy self to my show and listening. Now, as you are traveling around on this blue and green ball, bouncing through the cosmos, avoiding drumming monkeys, I need you to do one thing for me. Go out there and do that voodoo that you do so well. Punch it!